George Clooney and Brad Pitt's new movie, Wolves, is on Apple TV Plus September 27th.
That's where I want you to be now.
So if you want to see George Clooney and Brad Pitt, go to Apple TV Plus.
You got to start the story there.
Or if you want to see Brad Pitt and George Clooney, go to Apple TV Plus.
I am enjoying the show.
And if you want to see their new movie, Wolves,
You can't do it, I'm going to help you out. I can do it, so do it.
definitely go to Apple TV Plus.
Admit it, it's cool. Okay, fine, it was very cool.
Wolves, streaming September 27th on Apple TV Plus. Rated R.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the Vehicle Owner's Manual for important feature limitations and information.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Three goals and 3 points on the road for Erik ten Hag's Manchester United, alleviating fast-building pressure at the first possible opportunity after the international break. Was that a truly impressive performance, or just a slight improvement on what came before? Or was it even the same as previously seen, only against a lesser opposition? That's the key big-picture question to answer today, as well as discussing the individual performances of goalscorer Marcus Rashford and goalmakers Joshua Zirkzee and Amad. A very warm welcome to the Manchester United Weekly Podcast, where we'll chat through all of these things and much more, including a 5-star victory for the under-18s and questions from our ever-supportive patrons. We'll also have interviews with Anders Lindegaard, Bardsley and Danny Simpson from the United Legends game against Celtic last week. And as always, we'll play Guess the Player, set by Craig from 505 Sportswear. I'm Harry Robinson. Jack Tait is with me. Let's begin. Jack, let's start with some just outright positives. 3 players who really impressed, and we should say also, wasn't this just a lovely Saturday afternoon to enjoy? Partly because it had the right goal scorers, Marcus Rashford being the key one, something we've been waiting for these opening games of the season. I think all United fans, even those who find Rashford frustrating, probably unlike us who are bigger fans of his and are just desperately hoping that he can regain the form that we've seen before. This was a much needed goal and a much needed overall performance as well, actually.
We were just talking before we started recording, and I asked you whether you were at the game, and as you were telling me how good it was, it occurred to me that that's probably the first time a set of United away fans in the stadium have been able to sing at the end of a game without worrying about the outcome, probably since we beat Everton 3-0 last year.
Absolutely right. Yeah, and on that occasion, I was on a flight on my way to Istanbul for Galatasaray. I remember landing at Istanbul airport, and this kind of, because we were in Turkey, which doesn't have the same data sharing agreement with the UK, so only a couple of people had data on their phones, and these murmuring started going around the plane, and then someone I know turned around from their seat a few rows in front and said, "Have you seen Garnacho's goal?" I don't know what's happened. And then we all had to sign up to the free Wi-Fi in Istanbul airport to watch it at by the luggage collection point before we left the airport, and just stood there going, "Oh my God." But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's that hasn't happened for a long time. We even said at half time, how nice is this? And we'll get on to the big picture and the whole performance after we've spoken about Rashford and a couple of others. But even at half time, we were saying, this feels weird, even after a terrible first half hour, or not terrible, but a poor first half hour. And then, yeah, for the final 15 minutes and the whole of the second half, really, just that feeling of comfort, and a few kind of old songs coming out, songs about John O'Shea and Rooney and Keane and Cantona, getting proper renditions, not just little ones to kind of distract us from what's going on the pitch, but just a proper celebratory sunny Saturday afternoon at the seaside.
It's exactly the what you want from an early season away game while the weather's still nice. Away fans in the sunshine in short sleeves, singing away. And it was, look, we'll come on to the first half an hour, which I think has some real issues that are not maybe surprising about this team. But the rest of the game, I thought it was one of United's, if not, to be honest, probably I think our best hour of football away from home under Erik Ten Hag. I haven't seen us control a game in the manner that we did from the moment that we scored the first goal until the end of the game. I mean, that second half felt like I was watching a completely different team, because even when we have been 2-0 up at times under Ten Hag, you go back to say like the Wolves 4-3 win at Molineux last season, we're 2-0 up, feeling very comfortable in the game, and then end up letting Wolves back into it. It still feels, really, really difficult to secure the win there. Second half felt like we were absolutely cruising. Southampton, I don't think definitely didn't have a shot on target. I'm not even sure if they had a shot after they missed the penalty. I think it was something like 11 shots on target in a row from United players compared to none for Southampton. Yeah. It were really, really positive things to take away from it, and just what we needed after the Liverpool game. Yeah,
I could tell how good of an away end it was, because I remember coming out after the game and someone said, did Southampton even have a shot on target in that game? And everyone turned around going, well, yes, we did save a penalty half an hour in when it looked like we were going to have a terrible afternoon here. Yeah, it was that kind of game to watch as a fan. And that performance, and I'm going to play devil's advocate in a bit, because this, to me, looked like a pretty bad team that United were playing. So I think we should ask the harder questions, and we will do so. But that second half performance, and from 30 minutes to 45 or 48 or whatever it was with added time, gave the platform for Rashford to have his best performance so far of the season. And it wasn't just the fact he scored. The goal was good. It was, he was taking players on for the win that enough. There's been a couple of good moments, and we've criticised him, and rightly so, for these opening few games. Within them, there have been some good moments, some lovely crosses. For example, he should have had an assist. Zirkzee should have scored against Liverpool, for example, and there's been a couple of others where he should have got more than what he did in the end. But those good moments haven't been the kind of ones we really want from Rashford, which is taking players on, causing massive problems. And that's what we saw this time today. You could have seen his goal in 2 games ago even. I would have expected him to cross that, or to pass it backwards, or to pass it back to, I think he got it off Amad. But instead it's that quick movement, drops his shoulder and fine. And he's obviously spotted that gap and found the bottom corner. And that's exactly what we want from him. Intent. Yeah, I mean, the goal itself is, it's sort of much of a muchness. It wasn't not something I think you'd see him repeat a lot of the time. Ramsdale could probably do a little bit better. But even before that, I mean, literally the build up to that corner is him making a great run, gets a ball from Amad, forces a good save from Ramsdale that, maybe on another day he would have scored. His general performance even outside of the goal, especially after, again, we went ahead, which was the case for the entire team, was really, really positive. He was far more involved. Some nice link up between him and Zirkzee at times. I think you can tell that he's struggling a little bit without having Luke Shaw behind him. And I think that's not anything new. We've seen that from Rashford and Shaw before, that they are so good at playing together that when they're not in tandem with each other struggle a little bit, because they strike up such a good relationship. I think just having a fullback who is so much more willing to go on the overlap than Dalot is playing at left back at the moment, it makes a huge difference to Rashford, because it creates so much space for him. It gives him the option. It makes it easier for him to come inside when Shaw's bombing down on his outside. I think Dalot, when he's at left back, obviously not being a left-footed fullback, and also I think it seems like Ten Hag wants Dalot to be the one of the 2 fullbacks to step into midfield a little bit more often. It makes it a little bit tricky for Rashford, but I think we started to see more positive signs. I think Zirkzee was a big part of that, because he was dropping deep. And then he was sort of the player that Rashford was linking with, rather than it being so much with Shaw. Exactly, yeah, because it feels like Ten Hag realised, I mean, this kind of bluster after the Liverpool defeat, it feels like he had changed something, and he wanted more control in midfield. And that came in 2 ways, with Eriksen coming into the team and with Dalot Mazraoui playing kind of even more regularly further inside. Obviously, the thing we've discussed, and I think we spoke about in the season previews, the thing you sacrificed there is the attacking intent of your fullbacks. And as you said, we've always seen Rashford struggle without fullbacks who who offer him that option. Zirkzee is offering a different thing from inside, sometimes going on the outside. And let's talk about Zirkzee, because we criticised his performance against Liverpool. I think we both said, or I hope we did, he was obviously in good positions and you could see his intelligence, but the execution was well off. His touch just wasn't there at all. And it was hard to watch against Liverpool. It made him look seriously off the pace. And I don't think that made me have a long-term worry for him. It was just clear that it just made me think, it's a shame that Højlund's injured, because we can't let him adjust to the pace a bit more gradually.
Yeah, 100%.
And it might be a cliche, but every player who comes to the Premier League does say it takes you a while to adjust to the pace of it. And so it's not a cliche, it's just accurate. That wasn't the case here. Some of his touches were fantastic. Some of his passing was brilliant, and his understanding of his teammates already is obviously very good. And you saw exactly why Ten Hag thought he'd be a valuable addition to this team.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of times, just really, really good link-up play when he dropped deep. I think we said last week, if you're going to drop that deep, you can't be losing the ball. You've got to be secure in your touch. Yeah. And two things. Not only was his touch just individually better, but he was also much, much more willing to do things first time. And there's obviously not just a function of his own play. It's also a function of the options that he has available around him. But far more often the ball was coming into him, and it one touch around the corners. One really, really nice one in particular in the first half. I think when he played it to Bruno Fernandes, and then he played it forward to Amad, and then we were right into Southampton's back line. A couple of other times he dropped deep. One in where the ball dropped out the sky and he nutmegged a Southampton player in the middle of the park, and then played a great ball through to Amad. There were really good signs. And this is, when Zirkzee signed and we were all hearing about who he is as a player, his style, this is, I think, what we wanted to see from him, that he could give us a slightly different option to Højlund, who is a bit more of a very traditional number 9, someone who is a bit more of a battering ram. He's going to look to go in behind, probably isn't going to drop deep and be involved in build-up really at all. He's someone that you'll look to get on the end of things. Zirkzee is someone who probably isn't going to score or even be in as many goal-scoring positions as Højlund will, but someone that you hope would help you get into those positions more often, because he's going to drop deep. He's going to allow you to occupy, either drag out some centre-backs or occupy Southampton's midfield a little bit more, and then have the runners go beyond him and Amad and Rashford and maybe Bruno Fernandes. We did see that more often against Southampton. I think it was a glimpse into what he can do. And I think there will be games when Zirkzee might be better suited. It might be that when we play against Southampton didn't really sit in a deep block by any means, especially in the first half, because we let them have so much of the ball. But if there are teams who are going to sit very, very deep against us, maybe it is more useful for us to have Zirkzee in the team as someone who can drop in and give us sort of an extra body and build up. Whereas Højlund maybe isn't quite so useful in that, because he's just waiting to pounce on the end of chances, but there are too many bodies for us to create them. I think it's something for Ten Hag to experiment with, to see when is one better suited than the other.
He still has to finish better, but and the caveat to all of this is what we're going to come on to as well, is this Southampton team, they challenged United for half an hour, but once, in a way that we often do, once they'd conceded, it seemed to fall apart a little, and that's when United looked good. So the caveat for Zirkzee is he has to do this several times before we can really be confident in it, and he has to do it against a higher level of opposition. But this is having got his goal, which was a relief in his first game, and that's fantastic, and won United 3 points as well. This is a great confidence booster and kind of a reassurance to fans, but he has to do it against higher level opposition, and we'll see if he can do that. I think the other thing that helped United's build up massively and helped Rashford and the rest of the team was Amad, who we could so clearly see that controlled quality that he gives United compared to our other wingers. Kind of the performance that we wanted to see from Jadon Sancho when he signed, and actually is Amad who's ending up giving it while Jadon Sancho was at Chelsea. And it was needed in this game, as it would have been as it was against Liverpool, but I'm still confused as to why Amad didn't start that one. But what an exciting player.
What an exciting player. And I think the selection choice with him and Garnacho against Liverpool is, I think, a trap that people fall into quite a lot, where you think, okay, we're going to be playing on the counter-attack. We just need speed and directness. That's all we need. And you just get as much of that in your team as possible and hope that it works. And Well, that's understandable, and that is a skill set that is valuable when you're going to be playing on the counter-attack. I also think that it doesn't take into account enough the importance of actually just being able to retain possession, even while you're playing on the counter-attack. I mean, how many times against Liverpool did we have opportunities to get out and either
give your defence a break?
Exactly. Either the ball into Rashford or Garnacho wasn't good enough, their first touch wasn't good enough, or they're both looking to go long every single time, which again is valuable at times. But I think what Amad brings is the ability as a winger to come short, to pick up the ball to feet and play on the turn, whereas Rashford and Garnacho, they want to get the ball and be facing the goal that they're going towards, facing up a defender 1v1 or getting the ball in behind. Amad, of all of our wingers, is really the only one who's very comfortable receiving the ball, facing his own goal, either with a man at his back or playing on the turn, and then able to actually take us forward through his passing rather than just his dribbling. You know, he's still very direct when he gets an opportunity to dribble at his man, but that ability to just give us a different skill set is so valuable. And I think you saw that. I mean, so many times in this game, he'd pick up the ball in good areas, and just the precision and the weight and the quality of his pass is above anything that really any of our other wingers. Obviously, Bruno Fernandes can play great passes like that, but it's so much higher quality than either Rashford or Garnacho can do in those moments. So I think Amad playing alongside one of Rashford or Garnacho as the other winger is a really, really nice combination for United, because it gives us a slightly different option on either side of the pitch. I still would like Amad I think he still needs to develop a slightly better relationship with Bruno Fernandes, because it feels like those two should be able to work together really, really well. But so far they haven't quite struck up that relationship that you would hope from them on the pitch. And I mean that both in terms of Bruno feeding Amad, but also Amad being someone who isn't necessarily going to go down the outside of his man every time. It should, in theory, create space for Bruno Fernandes to make some of his great runs in behind the defence, and Amad has the quality to find him in those areas. And it feels like something that hasn't happened as much as we might want.
Yeah, some suggesting Amad could play at 10.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to see, if this is going to be a fluid team, which it feels like Ten Hag would like it to be, you would like to see a bit more of what you're talking about. Amad dropping into Bruno's position, allowing Bruno to make those runs off the shoulder that we haven't really seen enough.
I was actually thinking last night about the team that we might play against Barnsley this week, and I was thinking about rotating Bruno Fernandes, and obviously with Mount injured, it makes that a little bit trickier. Yeah. And I was honestly thinking maybe you play Amad there.
Because we haven't seen that Bruno goal scoring enough last season or at the start of this season. He had that goal against Burnley, the brilliant volley, that he ranks as his best ever United goal because of the technique, which came from that run and from a lovely ball from Johnny Evans. But you go back a couple of seasons, his hat-trick against Leeds obviously being the best example, and it's slightly different because of the way Leeds played, but he was making so many of those runs and benefited from it, and we saw it loads. But we haven't, it's dropped out of United's game a bit, and it's as a really valuable source of goals that we're not capitalising on at the moment. So you're definitely right. Let's have guest to player clue 1 from Craig, and then we'll talk about some of the big picture questions, play devil's advocate a bit. How good really was this performance?
Welcome to the latest Guest the Player, sponsored by 505 Sportswear, a brand forged from a love of music and football. You can check us out at 505sportswear.com or 505 Sportswear on Instagram. United Weekly Pod listeners can receive 20% off your first order using the code UTDWeeklyPod at checkout. So now for the good stuff. Your first clue. I am the only player to score in the Community Shield, FA Cup final and League Cup final in the same season.
Oh, wow.
Same season. I thought it was just going to be the 3. The same season means the only player means I like this one because it's guessable after a single clue. I think it's going to take me a few minutes just to work out which season this possibly could be.
For a second, I was almost thinking it was Ten Hag's first season when we did get to the league and FA Cup finals, but obviously not, because we were not playing in the Community Shield.
Yeah. And the 2 scorers in those, it was Bruno in the FA Cup final,
they were different,
and Casemiro and Rashford, wasn't it? Okay, both going to have to mull that over. There's a chance I'll have a guess for you before clue 2. But we've got a question from one of our patrons, Tony Ryan, which is kind of the key one that can spark a few others. He says, was there anything in the game yesterday that gave you confidence that we might be turning a corner? And I'm going to add an extra one on top of that, which is, we're playing devil's advocate a bit, that we've spoken about how Ten Hag's style of play is one that relies on fine margins that can go either way, in or against United's favour. On this occasion, the momentum swung in United's favour because of an individual action, Andre Onana's penalty save, which then immediately United go up the other end. Zirkzee has a chance, and within 8 minutes, we're leading by 2 goals. Is it unfair to say that this game is essentially no different to others, but on this occasion, the momentum swung in our favour rather than the opposition's? Or is that fair?
I think that we got quite fortunate, if we're being honest. Look, I mean, Southampton are a really poor side, as you could see in the second half in particular. I mean, they had nothing really to offer in the second half of the game. And the fact that we let them look as good as we did in the first half is a big concern. I do think that we absolutely rode the momentum that penalty save got us. And we've talked about this before, that this United team is one that seems to get stuck in whichever way the momentum in the game is moving. United gets stuck in that mode. And so when things get really difficult, we often see us collapse because we can't sort of deal with, we don't have the strength to stop things getting even worse.
Which feels a bit similar to Ole's team. Not in style or tactics or even specific players, but in that mentality thing of they're very reliant on turning points in games.
Yeah. And I think the difference here was that where previously, I think, if like against Liverpool, for example, if you concede a goal during one of your difficult moments, it feels like this United team spiral, and then you could concede 4 or 5. We somehow managed to not concede in that early period, and then you get the one moment where it's not reliant on the team functioning well. It's just a one individual moment by Onana saving the penalty, and obviously a little bit of luck that it was quite a poor penalty from Cameron Archer. And then it sparks a huge revival for you, and all of a sudden you're sort of off to the races again.
And what do you think? Is that confidence? Is that it? Or is there anything else that is responsible for that? I can't think of any other reason other than confidence that a single moment like that would change how you're executing a game plan. Or was it confidence for those 10 minutes before half time and then something changed at half time?
I think it is confidence, but I think the reason that confidence can have such a big impact on us is because we aren't yet secure enough in knowing how we're supposed to play. And so if you look at a team like, let's say, Man City, probably one of the probably the most well-drilled team in the world for the last 5 or 10 years. Every single time things go badly for them in a game or they're under a little bit of pressure, their confidence obviously takes some amount of a hit. Any team in the world, your confidence and your sort of faith in yourself takes some amount of a hit if you concede a goal or you're getting dominated, whatever. I think the difference, though, is that those teams that are really, really well drilled, they have very clear instructions and principles to fall back on. And so that even if your own sort of confidence is knocked to some degree, it can only go so wrong because you have that almost like default foundation that's sort of propping you up. I think because United are still a team that is a little bit helter-skelter, we're still kind of reliant on individuals doing the right thing at any moment rather than being able to rely on the team as a whole sort of functioning as this well-oiled machine. It means that impact on confidence can have a much bigger overall effect on the way that we play. And so I think you see, players like, let's say, De Ligt or Eriksen or Kobbie Mainoo, anyone in the team start to get on the ball more, be more confident, be more assertive in the way that they play once we feel like the momentum is sort of on our side. And because we don't have really clear sort of tactical foundations to fall back on, I don't think that we are able to overcome when the confidence is sort of taken away from us.
Yeah, it's also something I've kind of been for a few weeks is fundamental to the way that Ten Hag wants his team to play. It's a really high risk strategy. And as things stand, it's been very low reward. But I understand the reward that could come. We've not yet seen evidence of it. And high risk, high reward is the reason we've compared it to Klopp's early Liverpool in recent years is because that's essentially what his was, that you could get done repeatedly in those transition moments. And I guess you could use Bielsa's Leeds as another of the famous examples of a high risk, high reward strategy. And that's what Ten Hag's feels like. But it's a very hard one to pull off. I think more than I did a month ago or last season, I now understand a bit more what Ten Hag's trying to do with some of the decisions that we've found confusing. But I also understand now that it requires either really, really good players or really, really good managing, coaching. And at the moment, the fear we've had has been, we don't know which of these it is, but one, these players aren't good enough to execute what Ten Hag wants, or two, or alternatively, this manager isn't good enough to make the players execute it, or a mixture of the two. But as you're saying, particularly point one, and it might negate point two, confidence and momentum might allow us to temporarily execute this high risk strategy. And it feels, this second half, I don't think this was the perfect game to show that, but it did a little bit. And that's my fear, that we might have a few of these over the next few months where you go, oh, this can really work and we can play some really nice football. But it's just going to be similar to the last two seasons, where I think even in the first season, one of our complaints was at most we were getting a good 60 minutes out of United. We were never getting a good 90.
And to be fair, we've seen the similar trends in that regard already this year. I mean, we have had decent moments in games so far. The Fulham game, for periods, good half against Fulham.
A good half.
Against Brighton, we weren't terrible for all of that game. You know, I think in the first half of that game especially, we sort of controlled Brighton quite well, even if it was sort of control out of possession for periods of the game. Liverpool, all right, I don't think there was really any part of the Liverpool game other than maybe the first 10 minutes where we were in the game.
Yeah.
You've now had a good hour against Southampton. And look, I don't think anyone, at least of all the two of us, are sitting here saying we expect United to be 10 out of 10 for 90 minutes every single week. It's unrealistic. But you want the bottom level of that performance spectrum to be raised so that if you do have a bad 20 minutes or half an hour, it's not killing you. You know, all that might mean is that you're not creating as many chances and maybe you have a little bit less possession, but you're not being carved open and, you know, allowing the opposition to create 3 or 4 huge chances. I think that is where United really need to improve in that aspect. But I do think, you know, look, the first half an hour, there were big issues, and it is a worrying sign that against a team that I really don't think it has got much substance to their season in this league, unfortunately, in Southampton. No. We allowed them to, you know, have so much of the game. But on the flip side of that, as we said, that second half, you're saying in our good moments, we're just executing a high-risk strategy, which I totally agree with. But in the second half, I'm not sure that was the case.
No, I agree.
In the second half, we did actually, I think we pulled it back and we played a very low-risk game, but it was a low-risk game that didn't involve just sitting back and soaking up pressure. We were controlling the game on the front foot, but without committing 8-9 players forward and leaving ourselves exposed every time that Southampton won the ball back. And to be fair, the fact that we could do that with a midfield of Eriksen and Kobbie Mainoo, who are not, you know, the two players you'd think of when you think of, you know, sweeping up every time the ball breaks loose, because Ugarte was very good at that when he came on, which we should talk about. But the fact that we were able to do that with two midfielders who I don't think are the most mobile in Mainoo and Eriksen is a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. That control's far better than anything we've seen in recent times. And it's the first time we've won by 3 clear goals since the West Ham game, I think.
Wow, yeah.
February the 4th, of this year. And that was not as controlled as this one. That was a really exciting game because it was kind of it had the celebration of Garnacho, Højlund and Kobbie sitting on the advertising board, and it felt like, this might be the start of an exciting youthful era from this United team, and Højlund then gets injured and it's all very annoying. But that didn't have the control of this. So you're absolutely right. The second half was positive, but I think this Southampton team's really poor, and I can't see them staying up. So if United want to be doing anything, you should be winning these games by a couple of goals, and we deserve to in the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lovely afternoon, but I fear it's not a sign of positive consistency to come, I suppose.
You almost want to somehow get like a sports psychologist to go into the United dressing room and talk to them and say, why were you able to play the way that you did after Onana saved that penalty? What changed? Like, I'd love to know if the players, because I'm sure they feel what we're all seeing. You know, I'm sure they feel that for whatever reason they're not able to to switch the momentum of a game, and they're getting dragged down with it or boosted up by it if it's going our way. And it feels like a sort of mental shift that needs to happen among the players. And I would love to know what they think about all of this. I'm sure there are conversations that are happening internally at Carrington with the players trying to understand what is changing. But it would be, I think, a great insight to know how the players think about this, because you hear from former players that they feel the momentum of a game. They feel mentally the way that things shift, and that there are days when everything feels 10% harder than it does normally, or 10% easier than it does normally if things are going your way. And the best teams know how to make that switch when it's not going your way. And I'd love to know how the players react to, why is it after Onana's penalty save, everything switches and suddenly we're able to perform at a high level again? Yeah.
Final thing before the second guess the player clue, just to give me some more time to think if I have an early brave guess for this. Tait, good debut performance. Good to see him on the pitch. Yeah, something to look forward to. Yeah, I mean, obviously we didn't see very much, but I thought what we did see was exactly what we'd sort of been promised, really. He was very, very active defensively. I mean, just in the 10 or 15 minutes that he played, there was 3 or 4 occasions on the edge of Southampton's box where he was winning the ball back as soon as our attacks broke down. Risk-free in possession. I don't think he's going to set the world alight, but he also looked very secure, which really is what you want from someone in that kind of role. He was able to just pop the ball off to teammates. Someone who clearly is able to cover ground a lot better than, Casemiro or Eriksen. So I think he'll be a useful addition in there. Obviously, we'll see what he's like playing, firstly, a full game, and second, in sort of a more structured environment, most likely alongside Kobbie Mainoo. But I thought for a 10 or 15 minute cameo, given that there wasn't a whole lot for a defensive midfielder to do in a situation where we were 2 goals up when he came on, I thought he showed everything that you would hope for. Yeah. Do you have any idea about this guess the player? I think I have a guess. I don't know that it's right, but I have. You inspired me last week, I think. Oh, are you gonna take the guess? Yeah, I think so. You don't have to say it out loud, because obviously you'll give it away to me. But if you write it down somewhere, the problem is now I know that if you get this right, then you at least draw level with me. So you're making me want to take a punt as well. I'm going to WhatsApp it to you and trust that you won't look at it. Let me put my phone on Do Not Disturb quickly. Otherwise it'll flash up. My thinking is I'm basically trying to work out, I think the FA Cup ones, we've obviously had more finals in. League Cup is actually we haven't actually played that many League Cup finals. The most recent one, we didn't play the Community Shield. The one before that with Ibrahimovic, we weren't in the FA Cup final that year. Yeah. The 2010, we won in the FA Cup final that year. No, but we were in the Charity Shield. Because the question was that the question is definitely same season, isn't it? Not same calendar year. Sure, I think it is. Yeah. Otherwise, that would affect it. But okay. Let me just double check that.
Your first clue: I am the only player to score in the Community Shield, FA Cup final, and League Cup final in the same season.
Yeah, same season.
Yeah. Okay.
So, it's tough. I obviously don't. I feel like I'm going to have to put a time limit on myself and say I don't have a guess. So you've locked your guess in. Let's have clue 2 and see if it gives me. There's a couple coming to mind. Like Ibrahimovic comes to mind, even though I know that's probably not right. Mark Hughes in one of the 90s, maybe in 94, in a League Cup that we would have lost. Yeah, comes to mind. Whiteside always scored in finals. Yeah. 83 maybe. But we wouldn't have played... Would we have played the Charity Shield in 83? We might have done not as cup winners, but... Yeah, those are the 2 that are coming into mind. Hughes and Whiteside at the moment, who are perennial final scorers. Yeah. And then Rooney is just another kind of obvious guess. Anyway, let's have clue 2.
For your second clue, I once played 2 competitive matches in the same day.
Oh... All right, I have my guess. I'm pretty sure I know who that is. And if I'm right, neither of them were for United. I believe one was for a national team, and the other was for. Well, I can't say. That will help people get it, and I don't want to add extra. I don't want to add extra clues on. But all right, I'm locking in my guess. Okay. Cool. Okay, let's go into Patreon Q&A. Ad break for normal subscribers. Then we'll have an Academy briefing. We'll have Guess the Player Clue 3 after that. followed by some interviews from the Legends game, and then finally a preview of tonight's League Cup game against Barnsley. Just coming out of an interesting Patreon Q&A talking about Adrien Rabiot for starters, but then also games where we felt this comfortable in and whether there really have been any in the last 2 years. And there have been a couple that we've gone through. It's time for the Academy brief, and then we'll have Guess the Player Clue 3. Then we'll have a bit on the Legends game against Celtic before we preview Barnsley and reveal the answer to Guess the Player. Firstly, in the Academy briefing, 2 players moved to United have been confirmed: Samuel Lusau and James Overy. The club announcing their official Premier League squad after the transfer window. Both of those moves were fairly high profile. Lusau's a young Slovakian winger who arrives from Crystal Palace. James Overy is an Australian fullback who made headlines with an impressive pre-season performance against West Ham a couple of years ago before he moved to England with his family that summer. He's accepted a scholarship deal at United. The other high profile move, but yet to be announced officially, is that of Chido Obi Martin, the free scoring Arsenal striker. He played for Denmark's youth team during the international break. His move to United hasn't been ratified by the Premier League yet, but reports suggest there's nothing to worry about there, and it should be sorted very soon. The under-18s won 5-1 against Newcastle, a double from Gabriel Biancheri. That makes it 7 goals for him already this season. James Scanlon scored another fresh off scoring in the international break, a senior goal for Gibraltar, which is a fantastic achievement for him. Amir Brighamov scored a penalty. Good to see him scoring after an injury, a couple of injuries at the back end of last season. He's a very highly rated number 10. And Jim Thwaites as well, another young first-year scholar in the under-18 scoring again as well. Joe Hugo scored twice on loan for Wigan Athletic in a 4-0 win at Bristol. Radek Vitek kept a clean sheet in the Austrian Bundesliga. Eli Harrison kept a clean sheet for Chester in the FA Cup. 2 genuinely really talented goalkeepers there that worth keeping an eye on. And James Nolan and Reece Bennett played for their loan sides as well. Jack, we've both locked our clues in, or our answers in for Guess the Player. This is going to be clue 3 to confirm whether we're right or not. If we're right, you'll be getting 3 points and I'll be getting 2. And anyone who gets it after this clue will be getting 1.
Yep.
And for your final clue, after retiring from my playing career, I went on to manage a major rival during the Premier League era.
Okay, I'm confident with that. Are you confident in your answer?
All right. Yeah, I've got to say I'm glad I guessed after the first clue, because the second one would not have helped me at all.
Yeah,
I'm very sure that I'm right after hearing that.
The second one is one of those pieces of trivia that once you hear it, you don't forget who it is, but you might not necessarily find it. I can't decide whether I'm annoyed I didn't go for it. I mean, I'll give people a clue. It was a final extra clue. It was one of the 2 players I was mentioning when I was mulling over going for it. So I wasn't fully sure, but yeah, I'm wondering whether I should have gone for it after 1. I probably should have done. We'll reveal the answer to give you a bit more thinking time after a couple of interviews from the Legends game, and then we'll talk about Barnsley. United are back at Old Trafford on Tuesday night for that Barnsley game. It's the first time since our defeat to Liverpool, but there was this Legends game at the ground during the international break, and you might have seen some of the clips. You might have even been there. Hopefully you were, because it was a great day. United Legends hosting Celtic Legends, and Wayne Rooney's stunning free kick went viral. The footage of that, it was pretty special seeing him do that, wasn't it, Jack?
Yeah, properly special. I mean, obviously, like the pace on it was probably a little bit down to what you would need to score that in a Premier League game, but the angle from behind the free kick, the placement on it is unbelievable. I mean, I know. When I saw it the first time, like from the angle side on, the way you normally watch a game from, it was sort of like, oh yeah, that's a nice free kick. I couldn't quite tell just how amazingly in the top corner that really was. It was a brilliant free kick.
It's not an exaggeration to say that's one of the best free kicks scored at Old Trafford. It's a shame it wasn't in a game, but it's perfect. You can't do any better than that. I don't think there's any goalkeeper saving it. Yeah, he looks very different to how he did, but he still has the same quality.
Looked very different. I always laugh in these Legends games. It's like when you see a United shirt sort of be like stretched in a slightly different way than you do when regular players, wearing any kind of football kit. Both when like Rooney came on, when Scholes came on. Yeah,
there's a reason they make the extra large, and it's for certain Legends players.
But it was nice as well watching especially some of the more recent retired players like Rooney and Carrick.
Carrick's some player, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, someone put up a compilation of Carrick after the game, and you watched it, like he could walk into our midfield today. I'm sure he could. He actually couldn't, but
it's partly. I think you saw the same with Darren Fletcher. I mean, and this applies to Rooney as well, but obviously a bit less. But the lads who are still working in football, 100%. As in on the training ground, you can tell because their touch is still really good. Like, Carrick is involved a bit in Middlesbrough training all the time. We know Darren Fletcher's involved in United training all the time. Yeah. So their touch is obviously still going to be really strong. And there's obviously still play a lot. We'll hear from Phil Bardsley in a second, who spoke to Ivan, who was there for us, talking about how he still plays. There's kind of a group of ex-pros who play a game just south of Manchester every week. I think there was an article, it might have even been before the New York Times bought The Athletic, about that pickup game. It's just filled with brilliant ex-players from the Northwest who are all still playing against each other, like the highest quality pickup game you'll get anywhere in the world. Yeah, it's interesting.
What's fun as well about those more like recently retired players, just that their technique and everything is still exactly the same. Like, you watch that Rooney free kick, and despite the sort of larger frame and the grey beard, from the waist down, like, that is Wayne Rooney all over. Like that. You could clip that and put it side by side with like his free kick on his debut against Fenerbahce, and the technique would not look very different.
I know. You see the two pictures. I think it might have been United's Twitter account put the two pictures side by side. It's exactly the same. Even the celebration, I found that funny. I was watching it back again today, and he does the same like celebration, kissing towards the sky as if he's just scored in the Premier League. I was like, I like that.
On a different but slightly similar vein to what you're saying about the people that are still playing and have a decent touch. I don't know if you saw after the game against Southampton, Andre Onana did an interview with TNT, like just on the side of the pitch after the game, as they normally do. And in the background the entire time, you've got Johnny Evans and Ruud van Nistelrooy doing like a warm down, like jogs and sprints in the background. I'm just thinking, like, they're actually not even that far apart. Like they were only a couple of years off overlapping at United in the mid 2000s, and now it's 2024, and Van Nistelrooy's coaching Johnny Evans doing a warm down. Like, Van Nistelrooy looked fit as he ever has.
Yeah, it was nice. He was one of the final ones to go back down the tunnel, Van Nistelrooy, and he got his own. It's such a nice kind of addition to going to games. He's just having that chance to sing Ruud over and over again, and he's clearly appreciating it as well.
Yeah.
As I say, friend of the podcast, Ivan, was at the game for us. He chatted to a few of those involved in the Legends game post-match about a variety of topics. First up was Anders Lindegaard. He started by asking him about the last United game to be played in his native Denmark.
I was at the game
in Copenhagen.
In Copenhagen, unfortunately, and I sat amongst so I live in Copenhagen. My son plays football in Copenhagen, but I sat with the United supporters, and was obviously rooting for United. So it was a difficult night.
I was there as well, but I didn't see you, so I hope you're doing a good job hiding it. Growing up, I was as a goalkeeper as well, watching you play Edwin, David. Any advice to young goalkeepers up and coming now?
No, the kids often ask me for advice, and I always tell them the same answer. The most important part of football when you're that age is just having fun, because when you have fun, you're motivated to go out and do your best every day and to work 100%, and that's when development comes. So thriving in football and having fun is the single best advice you can give in.
How do you have fun as a goalkeeper having so much pressure? Because if you make a mistake, obviously, then
it's difficult. But it's a part of the job. That's what you're getting paid to do, to be able to handle that pressure. And it's in many ways a ruthless job. It's brutal, and it's a cold place to be when you make mistakes. But it's the job.
Lindegaard's an interesting one. For those who don't know, he was at United for 5 years between, as a reminder, 2010 and 2015. He then had spells at West Brom, Preston North End, Burnley and Helsingborgs in Sweden. He only retired last year. He's now posting some really interesting stuff into life post-playing, but particularly post-United, about the kind of sudden jump from earning a very normal amount of money playing in Denmark and then suddenly earning kind of intergalactic sums for Manchester United and what that does to you as a person. So if you're interested in that, go to his LinkedIn, because it is interesting. I recommend that. And and it is always interesting hearing what former players are doing with their lives post-playing. Danny Simpson left United, won the league with Leicester City, recently had his first boxing fight against YouTuber Danny Aarons, something a bit different. It ended in a split draw, and Ivan chatted to him about his new sport after the Legends game.
We had a few boxers in that changing room now. He would be the best. Who would win in the box? You had a playoff style. Who would get in the final?
I don't want to fight either of them two, to be honest. I've just had one. I don't know. Let's get him in the gym, won't we?
Obviously, Phil would be Wazza. We saw that all about 10 years ago. But
I don't know. I think Wazza's a good boxer, and Phil is as well, actually. So, no, listen, we'd have to get him in the ring, in the gym where I've been training.
The winner goes against you.
I don't know about that, but we'll get on the pads and see how they are. But I had a good chat with them about it, and they were doing that for me.
Obviously, Foundation promotes the physical education and through sports. How important is that for you? Because you just retired as well, and you seem to be in a good nick, and you nearly scored there as well.
It's so important, like what it does.
Any advice you can give to people, obviously struggling with it, or just retiring, or?
No, me, honestly, for me, I've retired, and the reason I'm people, why are you boxing? And it's been a few years that I've not played at a top level, and I miss training, miss routine, I miss having a purpose, miss obviously playing a Saturday afternoon for the last 15 years, and I miss that competition, plus the high of trying to win, obviously, and having that worry about losing, and that's life. And I think when you put yourself, you have some challenges and tests, you find a lot about yourself. And
is it more about mental?
Mental health and physical. Mental health, it was tough when you got your mates at work, your teammates, you're watching your teammates playing still because they're younger, and so it gave me that routine, being back in the gym with like other pro boxers, and I'm not pro, and just watching them, learning from them, being in that camaraderie again. And
did it feel like being a kid again, like trying to learn football when you 30 years ago, and then just
I'm nowhere. I've only had 5 since weeks, so just like I said, they've been amazing with me, and just having that, I miss the dressing room and things like that, and you can't get that back. That's the closest I've had is in the dream boxing gym.
Finally, Phil Bardsley, known by some for knocking Wayne Rooney out in his kitchen about 10 years ago, which inspired that iconic boxing celebration after Rooney's goal against Tottenham.
Now, if only Rooney had recreated that celebration in the Legends game rather than kissing, looking up to the sky. That
would have been good, but someone might have had to help him up. Phil Bardsley chatted to Ivan about the importance of staying fit for mental health. Quite a big kind of topic certainly amongst recent retirees, players that is, but also something that the United Foundation help many kids to do across Manchester and other regions as well.
You look to fit us out there, you're the last one to come up. What does a physical activity and means for? Because Foundation obviously tries to promote that in society and community.
Yeah, of course. I think it's really important. Obviously, for me, it's the structure coming out of football and moving into something else in my life. But I always felt that I had to obviously try and stay fit for my mental health, and like I say, try and create structure in the morning for getting in the gym, trying to stay fit, and it stands you in good stead in your life, and your health is the most important thing. I'd say structure.
So what do you do now? You still play football? You obviously golf, boxing?
I'm trying to get in the gym every morning, get on the treadmill, have a run. And obviously there's a few pros that play on a Tuesday night in Cheadle, so we have a good knock on a Tuesday night, and it just ticks you over, and like I say, socialising with the boys as well as keeping fit.
All of that, very interesting. Thanks to Ivan for going to the game for us, and all for a great cause. £1 million raised to help support the Foundation's work, and I've been lucky enough to see it in action several times. It really is brilliant. Now, let's talk about Barnsley quickly. Tuesday night in the League Cup. It's the kind of game that can be hard. Exactly the kind of game that Sir Alex's team would have scraped through 1-0 with a load of young players playing. I wouldn't mind that. As long as I'd love to see, this is a fantastic opportunity, for example, to give Harry Amas his debut, to give Toby Collier a start. And I think it's one of the things that sometimes we haven't done well enough under Ten Hag last 2 seasons, giving these fringe players an opportunity so that when there are injuries, when we need them to come in, they're a bit more ready, a bit sharper and ready to come in. So that's what I'd want to see from this game, especially this early in the season.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's been, even in the first year, I think this was probably our maybe one and only real criticism of Ten Hag was the lack of rotation in times when I think there were opportunities to do so. I think there's a few key players in particular that really need a rest, like Kobbie Mainoo, probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice to give Dalot or Mazraoui a rest, but I don't think we really have the option, to be honest, given the lack of options we have at fullback.
You can rest one of them with a mass.
Yeah, true. Yeah, and maybe play each of them for a half or give one of them the entire game off.
Yeah.
Bruno Fernandes would be nice to give a rest, but like I was saying earlier, it's kind of tricky with Mount being out. Who do you play in his place? Maybe Amad starts at number 10. I would be interested to see that, or you could even push Eriksen a little bit higher and play maybe Collier and Casemiro, or Collier and Ugarte, maybe give Ugarte a full run out in the League Cup. It'd be interesting to see where Ten Hag goes with it. I would like to see quite a lot of rotation. Personally, I think United have actually, done a really good job at creating good squad depth in this current squad that we have. Every single position has at least 2 players, assuming everyone's fit, which obviously everyone isn't, that can step in and you'd be fairly confident that they can put in a decent performance. And I think we need to be using that more than Ten Hag has in the past. But you're right about this not being, it's definitely a potential banana skin. It's not that long ago that we got knocked out by Luke Matheson scoring as a 16-year-old for Rochdale.
Yeah.
We've had poor performances and poor results.
5 years ago this year, maybe?
Yeah, something like that. I think that sounds about right.
Yeah.
We've had poor results in games like this plenty of times before. And, Barnsley are not exactly, it's not like we're playing the best team from the lower leagues that you can imagine, but they're a decent side that will give us a run for our money if we're not careful.
Yeah. I mean, United should absolutely be winning. And one of the... It's important for Ten Hag as well, because you lose this and you have no guaranteed competition you're still in until the FA Cup comes around in January.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Given what we've seen in his first 2 seasons, it's very important for him to still be in competitions to the end, whether you win them all or not. So, given the pressure he's under, and this Southampton game has alleviated a bit, but it will come back very quickly. He absolutely needs to win this. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him go quite strong. I'd hope for a strong bench with a very rotated starting lineup. As for Barnsley, United's under-21s actually played them in the EFL Trophy a few weeks ago. Barnsley did put out a lesser team themselves, but they went 2-0 up, and then United came from 2 behind to win 3-2, a double from Jack Fletcher. So who knows, maybe Jack Fletcher will suddenly get an opportunity in this game. That'll be pretty exciting as well. And otherwise, Barnsley have won 3 of their opening 6 league games. They were beaten 3-0 by Stevenage, I think, at the weekend. So they're not coming to this in good form. United are. And let's hope for a good win. Guess the player. Let's reveal the answer. Jack, do you want to, since you guessed first, give your answer first up before we hear the clue? The reveal even.
Yeah, so I've got to say, I was quite confused initially because, so at first I thought it might be something in like the mid 2000s because we played in finals 4 years in a row, but they never overlapped. So we were in the League Cup in 03, and then we had the FA Cup finals in 04 and 05, then League Cup in 06, and then the FA Cup in 07. But I don't think we ever overlapped. And so I was a bit confused really, but then the Charity Shield being added in, I think was the kicker to me, because I think, as you were sort of getting to when you were going through Mark Hughes or Norman Whiteside, it's just that to play in the Community Shield is most likely going to be in the 90s when we started winning Premier Leagues fairly regularly, unless it was a sort of weird thing where we got in through coming second in the league or anything like that. So I didn't know this, and I am very confident it's right now, having heard the last clue, but I took a very educated guess that I know we were in the final of the FA Cup and the League Cup in 94. I think we lost the League Cup, but we did score in the game. I think was it 3-1. I think we lost, and I'm assuming we definitely would have been in the Community Shield because we won the league the year before. So my guess was Mark Hughes, which was also my guess because I know from the second clue he once played for Wales and then got on a flight to play for Bayern Munich later that day. I think he played a half of each. It's some ridiculous story. You should Google it. It's that is amazing. And it's a great clue, Craig. And not only is it just a great clue, but the fact he's actually revealed it. Anyway, we should actually check that we've got this right. So let's hear from Craig.
And your answer is, of course, Mr. Mark Hughes.
There we go. Lovely. So 3 points for Jack, 2 points for me. That draws us level on something. I can't remember what. 9-0, 12-0, something like that. I think it was 9-8 after last time. So it'll be 11-0.
Yeah. That sounds right.
Which is right, I think, because we've now each got it once after one, and all the others, I think we've got it after two.
Yeah.
I think the only other year that we would have played in all three is 83. So I was right about that. But Whiteside scored in the League Cup final, which we lost to Liverpool, and he scored in the FA Cup final against Brighton, but he didn't score in the Community Shield, or the Charity Shield as it was then, because Robson scored both.
And were we in the Community Shield because of finishing second that year? Why were we in the? Because we didn't win the FA Cup the year before.
It must have been that Liverpool won both the season before. Yeah, we didn't win the league. We didn't win the FA Cup in 82, so it's got to be that. I think that's the only other time, weirdly, that we've played in. Well, not that weirdly. It's quite rare to reach the League Cup and FA Cup final in the same season, but and then to add the Community Shield on top of that.
Well, and you'd have to do that and then also win the FA Cup or the league, or come second in the league with the same team winning the cup and the league of the year before as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's the only other time, and it was
maybe this year. Maybe this will be the year.
Maybe it will. Maybe it will. Let's see. I mean, it would be the natural.
Maybe Garnacho can be the second name on that list.
God, that'd be fun. Yeah. Anyway, United need to beat Bardsley to do that first, and let's see if they can do that on Tuesday. Yeah. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. That's all we have time for. Thank you especially to our patrons. If you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's much appreciated. And for more from us throughout the week, you can find Jack on Twitter at
UTD Tait, Tait.
And you can find me at Harry Robinson 64 and the podcast itself at UTD Weekly Pod. Thank you for listening. Have a great week. Enjoy the game against Bardsley, and we'll speak to you very soon. Goodbye.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.